Hi, I'm going to create an 8.5 by 11 layout. Close to my heart, recently bought out some 8.5 by 11 albums, as well as the page protectors to use in them. And so I thought I would create a page in this size. The photo, a single photo seemed to work quite well with this sizing when I had a think about it. I started with thinking I would do a full 12 by 12, but then changed my mind. The 8.5 by 11 page protectors also fit in our 12 by 12 album. So the holes along the end fit beautifully with our normal 12 by 12 pages. So you can have a mixture of page sizes in the one album. So I'm going to use a little bit of Holly Jolly as well as some of the Seasons Mixin. So the one I'm just cutting here with the dots is the Seasons Mixin page, and the pink sort of plaid in the background there is part of the Holly Jolly collection, which you can find in the November-December 2019 idea book, both close to my heart. This piece of pink here with kind of the raindrops on it is also part of the Mixins in this idea book. This plaid piece here with the grey is from the September-October idea book mix-ins. So I just wanted to bring in a slightly different colour so it's just not all completely pink. But I chose the pink or the peachy colour because it goes beautifully with the top that my friend is wearing in the photograph. So I'm just trimming down this page to 8.5 by 11. And putting my layered photos on there to see what that's going to look like. Partway through putting this page together, a friend from church popped around and just popped in that wee note that I've got there to the left, and he was also coming around to have a look at our beehive. So partway through this page I did have to pause the process and head on out to see what they were up to in the backyard, and of course take some photos for a future layout. So this piece of paper I've just cut from there again is from the September-October idea book mix-ins. I really like the mix-in papers. You get 6 different double-sided designs, and so they can be used on their own or in conjunction with current, and as I've just shown you here, future collections. So our cat Rua in this photo here decided to make himself at home with our visitors after breakfast, climbing all over her and snuggling into her hair. I think he misses our daughters who are away in Australia at the moment. So I've got this stamp set, which I think was from a previous collection as well, but it was from this year, so if you've got this stamp set, go for it. Otherwise, play around with other stamps that you've got. Stamps are a fabulous asset to have in your scrapbooking collection because they can serve a variety of purposes and they do not have to be a single-use item, which is why I like them, because they can be used again and again. They're not just a consumable that disappears. So I'm going to stamp with the archival black the 2 florals that I've pulled off and placed on my layout there to see what they would look like. And I'm just going to stamp them, and I toyed with the idea of colouring, and here's the said cat that was also in the photograph. I guess he wanted to come and see what he was being publicised for. A bit of a pest really, so I had to scoop him up and take him out of the way after doing this stamping. It was rather cute. And so I stamped both of these, and then I'm going to actually fussy cut around them to place them onto the layout. But before I move on to that, I'm going to stamp directly on my paper. And I decided to do that at this point before sticking things down, because that means that if it didn't stamp quite right, I could twist the layout around or play around with it so that it would be tucked behind some photos or some other embellishment pieces on the page, but the page wouldn't be wasted. So now I'm just going to start just cut closer to the stamps, place them on, and then look towards doing the fussy cutting process. And after putting these down, it was at this point that I decided I'm going to go and see what's happening with the beehive out in the backyard. And back again. and just decided to use some of these hearts from a background stamp set that was from a previous idea book as well. Seem to be using a few of those at the moment. Just a bit of inspiration for you to use what you've got rather than to always have to get the new ones. And if you see a stamp set that's got lots of uses like these hearts and things, then it's definitely worth having in your supplies. So using the tape runner here to layer down these photos, and I'm just going to roughen up all these edges. I like that slightly distressed or that used or that worn look. It just has a bit of homely feel to it, and I just like the depth and dimension it gives the page without it being too heavy or sticking out too much. So sticking them onto each layer and roughening up the edges as I go. Sometimes it's nice when you're doing these fold over bits to let some of the colour from the page behind peek through, which is what I decided to do with these words on this one, because it's got quite a nice green there and the page had a bit of a pinky, almost a monotone or a single colour feel. I felt it just needed a little bit more of something else brought into the page, so that was why I'd used the black and white and the grey. But just being able to rough up those edges brought in a little bit of the minty green from that Mixin paper. So I'm using the zip strip from this piece of paper from the Holly Jolly, and I'm just going to tuck it along there as part of the page, and adding in my florals that I have fussy cut around. And on the top one there, I'm just using the tape runner to stick it down, but I'm going to use the foam tape to put down the one at the bottom, just because I wanted it to sit above the photo rather than tucking in behind it like the smaller floral is. So just 2 strips of the tape there, and then placing it so it's overlapping the photo, and once I've done the details on my journaling card, it will tuck in there. So I've also added the ribbon and a couple of julep gems around the page as well. Thanks for looking. Happy creating.